Tell me a little bit about the last few times you've taken the biggest financial institutions on Wall Street all the way to a trial.
Years after the mortgage meltdown, mainstream America is still feeling the brunt of the crisis. Wall Street executives have been able to avoid prosecution through a series of fraud settlements.
Factors like the real cost of food and energy, the fact that grocery stores are watering down milk, the fact that you've got a scandal with horse meat and meat. Because there's an inflation problem, Mark Carney is going to exacerbate that problem.
Ah, yes. Welcome to Radio Free Canada. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
So good to have you along. We're talking about those things that mainstream media refuses to talk about. Why they refuse to talk about it, I don't know.
Well, because it's not in their corporate interest to talk about it.
Every time you see a banking commercial, realize that they're not telling you the whole story about fractional reserve lending, the way banking systems work. But we do. This is Radio Free Canada, out of the box thinking. Let's start it off with this awesome clip.
Now, I know there have been some landmark settlements, but we face some very special issues with big financial institutions. If they can break the law and drag in billions in profits and then turn around and settle, paying out of those profits, they don't have much incentive to follow the law. So the question I really want to ask is about how tough you are, about how much leverage you really have in these settlements. And what I'd like to know is, tell me a little bit about the last few times you've taken the biggest financial institutions on Wall Street all the way to a trial. Anybody? Ms. Walter?
We look at the distinction between what we could get if we go to trial and what we could get if we don't.
I appreciate that. That's what everybody does. And so the question I'm really asking is, can you identify when you last took the Wall Street banks to trial?
I will have to get back to you with the specific information, but we do litigate, and we do have settlements that are either rejected by the commission or not put forward for
Okay,
approval.
we've got multiple people here. Anyone else want to tell me about the last time you took a Wall Street bank to trial? There are district attorneys and U.S. attorneys who are out there every day squeezing ordinary citizens on sometimes very thin grounds and taking them to trial in order to make an example, as they put it. I'm really concerned that too big to fail has become too big for trial. That just seems wrong to me.
So, totally unlike Iceland, no prosecution at all.
Well, no, but you know, Lenny Brewer, the Assistant Attorney General there, he retired soon after that PBS special aired.
Did he? That was it for him.
I think he went to work and used that revolving door to go back to some banking firm.
Yeah, I know. You just got to watch the legal firms or the banking industry that these guys go to afterwards to find out where their paychecks are really coming from. We're going to concentrate on the quote-unquote economy. Okay. Remember, banks make money up out of nowhere. We're going to run a clip on fractional reserve lending in a bit to explain what we mean when we say banks make money up out of nowhere, but they do.
And they steal money, too.
They steal money, and then they don't get, prosecution.
They get deferred prosecution.
And remember, our Canadian banks were bailed out in 2008. We all paid $3,400 for that privilege. But let's run this clip. Let's talk about things that they don't want us to talk about.
Foreclosed homeowners in Los Angeles are calling out Wall Street giant Bank of America.
This is ridiculous. I mean, how greedy can people be? I've spent over $40,000 trying to get my home back, and that's all we want. It's just to pay our mortgage.
After negotiating loan terms with B of A, Corona says the bank held her payment, sending her into default. Occupy activists tried to keep her in her home, but Corona and her daughter were eventually evicted. Years after the mortgage meltdown, mainstream America is still feeling the brunt of the crisis. Wall Street executives have been able to avoid prosecution through a series of fraud settlements. B of A and other big banks have agreed to pay billions of dollars for their financial schemes. But deals with the feds have bailed out Bank of America from having to pay billions more in legal claims.
And Bank of America has paid lots and lots of money out, but it's really a pittance of what they gained throughout the financial bubble that was built up in the housing market. They have not been held to account, and they continue many of the same practices and are just as big, if not bigger, than they were before.
The foreclosure rate has decreased since the peak of the crisis, but there were still more than 1 million homes that fell into foreclosure in 2012.
Bank of America, what do you say? How many homes did you sell today?
While bonuses on Wall Street continue to grow, so does the heartache of America's foreclosed families.
We don't want anything free. We just want our home.
In Los Angeles, Ramon Galindo, RT.
We say convict. Bank say.
Yeah, no kidding. The analogy that I saw about Bank of America and Goldman Sachs was it's like stealing a $150,000 car and then having to pay a $5,000 fine and getting to keep the car.
Keep the car. Well, yeah.
Okay, and that's exactly what they did. Okay, now they robbed the Americans, they robbed the world by making up money from nowhere, and then
getting and then gambling with it and losing at the tables.
Gambling and losing, and they lost at the big crapshoot that it is out there. Now, right now, your investments, your real estate, your RRSPs, your mutual funds are all tied to these turkeys.
Well, those are assets for the big ATM that they go to, which is the Treasury.
Yeah,
it says, give us more money.
They got this printing machine in the back, and they just print all this money. That's really cool.
Well, Greenspan came out and said the American economy can never fail because we can always print more dollars.
Okay, so we're at that point in the show of the reality hits the pavement show. Now, if you don't believe us, if you're going humming and hawing, I want to run this clip for you. Okay, it's from the show The Four Horsemen on
Fiat currency. Yeah.
On Fiat currency, they make money up out of nowhere. Let's run this.
Since 1971, when President Nixon took the United States off what was left of the gold standard, the world has operated under a system of money called fiat. The dollar, the pound, the euro are all government fiat currencies. Fiat is a Latin word meaning let it be so. It is the law that this government currency be money. Indeed, without that legal enforcement, and the fact that we must pay taxes in this money, that dollar bill or that computer digit that represents a dollar would be pretty much meaningless. Only the government has the power to issue fiat money, but banks can create it through lending. If somebody wants to borrow $10, a bank can create it from nowhere and lend it. It can then charge interest. Banks also create money by lending against an asset, such as a house. They're given the deeds to the house, and they create the money out of nowhere and lend it, at interest, of course. But who benefits? Of course, those that have the power to issue money, governments and banks. They haven't had to do anything productive, they just create money. However money is created, be it through lending, fractional reserve banking, financial bailouts, or old-fashioned money printing, banks are always at or near the top of the money-issuing pyramid. In reality, this process of creating money only redistributes wealth from the bottom to the top of the pyramid. And thus that ever-increasing gulf between rich and poor gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Okay, so yes, they make money up out of nowhere.
That's right, and they gamble with it. And sometimes they get caught, but they get away with it, for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. Now, while we're talking about this, we do want you to look up GlassSteagall Act, okay, and what happened with Ron, dissolving that. What happened was there was a firewall in between the investment bankers and your bank account and your investments.
That's right.
And that was the GlassSteagall Act, and then he got rid of it.
Larry Summers and Bill Clinton and wasn't it Rubio?
Yeah, something like that. But check it out. Check our facts on this and get informed about the fact that now your personal savings are tied to these Wall Street bankers, and that needs to be separated. That's the big gun that they're holding to the temple of everybody in North America. Okay, we're too big to fail.
Give us $70 billion or we'll kill this dog and trash the economy.
Okay. They're holding us hostage to their banking system that they're screwing with. Okay, Goldman Sachs, all of these guys, do your research on this, but this should make them shake. Yes?
I think so.
Okay, so you be the judge.
4 people involved in Iran's biggest fraud case were sentenced to death. The judgments for the main defendants in Iran's biggest fraud case, involving around $2.6 billion, were issued. Iran's general prosecutor stated that
4 people were sentenced to death for the crime of corruption on earth and disrupting the country's economic system. The head of Milli Bank in Kish was also sentenced to life imprisonment, and a former deputy minister, Khodamurad Ahmadi, was sentenced to 10 years in prison and more.
In addition to jail time, some were sentenced to flogging, ordered to pay fines, and banned from government jobs. Iran's general prosecutor stated that almost none of the actual companies involved in this case were closed. They were managed by court officials with good results.
Only one company was closed by the accused and not the government. We appointed one official and some experts to run it. One of the companies was Iran Steel Company in Ahvaz, with around $60 million in losses in the first 6 months of the last year. The same company had around $35 million profit.
According to indictments, the owner of Arya Investment Development Company, which was at the center of the controversy, bribed bank managers to get them cash in around $2.6 billion worth of letters of credit without necessary documents and the absence of any collateral or goods involved. According to officials, 7 state-owned and private Iranian banks are said to be involved in the fraud case.
Former CEO of Iran's Milli Bank, Mohammad Reza Khavari, who was one of the main suspects in the case, escaped justice after the scam was revealed. He is on Interpol's Red Notice Wanted list. Arash Khalapari, Press TV, Tehran.
I can't believe we just ran a clip on
Iran putting bankers to death.
I mean, talking about appropriate measures here. You make up money out of nowhere. You bankrupt a whole entire nation. 300,000 homeless in Canada. 1 in 5 children going hungry.
Well, that's 2 countries that seem to have it right as far as prosecuting the bankers goes.
Yes, Iran.
Iceland and Iran.
Yeah, Iceland sent out bounty hunters to collect up the bankers. Over 100 bankers in jail in Iceland right now.
Maybe they should deliver them to Iran.
Okay, that would be appropriate. Our own bank head is gone overseas. Let's run this and then we'll mock it abjectly.
Economic commentator Max Kaiser has been listening. He's got an American accent, but let's go to him anyway. Max, what do you make of the new governor?
Well, Mark Carney, his first day in the job, he can start printing money to pay his salary, which is going to be in the millions, and a very generous housing bonus. But basically, Andrew, I think we have to prepare for more inflation in this country. The bond market's already trading down on the Mark Carney words. The yields are moving up, and of course, this is the last thing they want to see. And you've got a real problem with inflation in the UK. They say it's 2.7%, but when you add in factors like the real cost of food and energy, the fact that grocery stores are watering down milk, the fact that you've got a scandal with horse meat in the hamburgers, that's an inflation story. It's substituting cheaper meat because there's an inflation problem. Mark Carney is going to exacerbate that problem.
What do you make then with his idea, which I'm not necessarily sure he's going to do it, but he has floated the idea of replacing the 2% inflation target, which the bank hasn't met for about 60 months, with a growth target, an economic growth target?
Well, this is a lot of central bank trickery because what they want to do is they want to show that the overall GDP is bigger relative to debt. So they're going to allow inflation to creep higher so they can print higher GDP numbers so that their bond rating hopefully will remain at AAA. Again, Carney is a servant of the banks and the banking establishment. The average person on the street in the UK is going to experience higher inflation and they're going to experience a downgrade in their living standards.
So, Matt, we know the new governor's a big fan of the daily politics. When he watches this on catch-up on iPlayer after he comes out of the committee, give him one piece of advice. The new gov, tell him what he should do.
He should resign immediately and let markets set interest rates and get back to capitalism and free market capitalism. We don't want a central Politburo interest rate setting commie at the Bank of England. You want free markets. You want real markets.
All right. I somehow feel he's not going to do that, Max, but we'll pass it along anyway.
Yeah, ran Canada's economy right into the ground. Union jobs are gone. Slave labor is us.
And of course, right after that little hearing, the UK's credit rating was stripped.
Yes.
It's down to AA plus instead of AAA.
So remember, central banks are not doing a good thing, but we do have a solution. Stay tuned for that. Radio Free Canada, I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
We got more coming up. Stay tuned. It's so good to have you along. Keep working it.